Okay, welcome back to Fast Jet Performance, and I'm Tim Davies, and I want to run through a bit of correspondence I've had. And this is something I've been putting off for a while because it was quite a lengthy email, and obviously the person who sent it to me did need some advice, and it's very difficult sometimes for me to give that advice, especially when I'm busy. I tend to neglect it a bit. So what I want to do is run through some questions with you. Basically, that's been asked of me. I know it's probably going to help you out as well. Let's get to it. Okay, so I'm going to read out the questions now, and then I'll talk a little bit about the email later. If these questions aren't relevant to you, or you know the answer already, go and watch another video about cats falling off roofs or whatever it might be. However, if you think one of these questions might be good for you, they're in the show notes down the bottom there of this video anyway. You can go and check them out real quick, or I'll read them out right now. If they're relevant, stay. If not, do something else. All right, so I've got a laptop down in front of me, which means I will be looking down a little bit throughout this video. Let's leap through it. I've got 6 questions really. They kind of extend a little bit, so it's not as simple as you might think. And I want to put some context on this as well in a minute. So let's have a look. I'll just go through the questions now real quick for you. I've read that you didn't really have an idea about joining up at the time, which is interesting me. What were you expecting military life to be like before you joined? And did it meet those expectations? All right, there's one question. Next question. From experience, can you describe the journey from student to pilot? Next question. Was there a point during training where you thought this wasn't a good decision? Interesting one. Would you say the majority of your contacts came from the forces, or do you end up meeting many other people? Would you say that cuts to the services are really having a noticeable impact on training as well as other aspects of the military? So really about 5 questions there already, maybe 4 or 5 questions. And the interesting thing about this is this young chap here, he's probably in his A-levels, I think, looking then to do further education, join up into the military, and he's doing what a lot of young people do, especially a lot of young men nowadays, and predominantly I do deal with men, women as well to a certain extent, but much less, of course. Probably about 5% of the people who contact me are women. So what men tend to do is we overanalyze a lot of things. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as we understand that that is what we're doing. Analysis is good, don't get me wrong, but you just have to understand that if you do analyze too much, you get into something called analysis paralysis. And when we go through this email, you may see some signs of this. I'm not going to read everything to you. If you send me an email, by the way, I won't give out the name of the person that sent me the email, but if it is relevant to what I'm doing, or if it is nasty towards myself or people that I'm trying to help out, then I probably will expose that. This email is very interesting, which is why I'm going through it with people today, because I know that other guys can benefit from it. Now, here's the thing as well. I'll answer everything you send me. You know this, and I know this because that's what I do. But I get a lot of comments, I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of Twitter and everything else that comes at me, okay? That's fine. Facebook is a big medium for all of us. Anything new, of course, I will go into it like I'm doing here, because there's some new stuff in this email that I don't think we've really talked about before. Anything that's the same, I might just hit you back with a few points, because if I've talked about it before or I've written about it before, get yourself in there before you send me an email. There's a lot of stuff in the writing that I've done already, okay? So jump into there. You can search on the website, fastjetperformance.com, and you may well find exactly what you're looking for in a really kind of condensed and concise manner. Much better than I can give it to you just by standing here and talking to you in front of a camera, okay? Because obviously I'm not flying at the moment. I was flying last week. This is the weekend right now. Wife's downstairs trying to do the garden. I'm up here trying to hook you up with some content. You know, there's going to be some discussions later about where was I and everything. So if there's stuff that you can find somewhere else, and do that first. However, this guy, he had some questions that weren't in my material already, which is why he's written me an email. His email starts off where he talks about his passion. I'm not going to read everything to you because a lot of it isn't relevant, but what he does is he starts in a way that I see quite often, and he uses words that I also see probably more than I'd like to, but I understand why that is. And I've written about this before in essays, and the word he uses here is passion. A lot of you know how I feel about passion, that particular word. And the word I would use in place of that is probably purpose. I believe that word has more connotations that are relevant to what you're going to be doing for the next 10 or 20 years of your life when we talk about a military flying context. Passion, if we look at what passion is similar to, say, an affair. It's something that burns brightly. It's like a flare, you know, and it burns quickly, very brightly, but for a very short period of time. Now, when we talk about having a passion to fly, a lot of people talk about having passion to fly, but they've never flown before, or they may not have flown in what would be a working context. They may have had a glider flight or a light aircraft flight, and that's absolutely fine because that's all I had before I joined the military. I never worked in any aviation context. But when you look at what you're going into, it is a job. So when we start talking about what jobs we can be passionate about, not many spring to mind, maybe being a rock star or something, I don't know. Even rock stars give up being a rock star eventually. With flying, it's the same. Let me talk a little bit about last week. Last week I'm on the squadron. I think I flew about 6 or 7 times. Over 5 days, that's quite a lot when you look at the planning that I had to do for the trips I had to do. Was I passionate about getting in the airplane every day? No, I've done it for 20 years. Was I passionate about it 10 years ago? No. Is anyone on the squadron passionate about flying every day? No, probably not passionate. You know, they do enjoy it certain times, certain flights. Some flights they really don't want to fly. So it's work. That's why you get paid money to do it. And for those of you who say, I'll fly for free, I fully appreciate that, but that wouldn't last. You do a couple of trips, you might do a year max, and you realize you're living out of a shoebox. You need to get paid for this stuff. And in order to get paid, you need to contribute. And contributing, that takes more than just passion. Okay, so passion is good because it will get you in the front door, but it won't sustain you within that particular job or within that context of employment. We need to think a bit deeper here. We need to think of purpose. I could do a whole blog thing on purpose, and I don't need to. But I'm not saying what he's written is a mistake. What I'm saying is that draws me in to where he is in his life. When he talks about being passionate about flying, I know this is someone who's probably in his teens, not in his mid-20s, is in his teens. Still has that passion burning deep inside of them that's going to accelerate them into some kind of career. And that is a good thing for this stage, to be passionate about this. But start thinking about what passion really means. Start thinking about when you're 32, you're not earning the money you want to earn, you're being deployed out to North Africa or somewhere, your wife's at home thinking about getting divorced. Where's passion then in your life? You know, let's have a think about where your purpose is and how you can contribute to society, to a military structure by what you're doing in the flying. That's a bit of a sideline. So, what he's saying here, he knows that the path he's set himself on is going to be a long one. It's going to be filled with difficulties, he says. He wants to be careful in his deliberation. I know what he means here. He wants to be sure of the path that lies ahead of him before he commits fully to it. This is analysis in its rawest context, and it's a good thing because I keep teaching people to think of that next stage. What does it feel like to be a 32-year-old fast jet pilot? What does it mean? A lot of guys I work with are in their early 30s. What are they thinking about? What are you going to be thinking about? If you're a helicopter pilot and you're flying out in Syria the whole time, is this a good thing for you? You know, what's your family structure look like? Is this the kind of employment that you really want? You know, and this is the questions that are being asked now, and this is a good thing because I'm here to explain this thing to you. So the first question comes about then, really, bit of context. He says that I didn't really have an idea about joining up before I did, and that's interesting to him, but it's not exactly true. Going back in my family, there was a heavy military context going through my grandfather to my grandfather to my father, Marines, British Army, and in fact the Royal Air Force as well on my mother's side. So joining the military for me was probably something that was always going to happen. I'd been in the Air Cadets. Before that, I think I was a cub for a long time. And then I did quite well in the Air Cadets, and then I went to university. I was in the Officer Training Corps, which is like the Territorial Army for students. So I did long-range patrolling competitions within that, and the whole time, because I wasn't eligible for the University Air Squadron, I applied to the Navy in the end, okay, the Royal Navy. And that's where I felt more at home than applying to the Royal Air Force. As it turns out, after 5 years of the Navy, the Sea Harriers decommissioned. I was in Valley at Tactical Weapons School. I was about to come out of it. Nothing to fly. The Air Force picked about 9 of us up, put them on some Jaguars, some F3s and some GL4s. I was a GL4 guy. So love the Air Force for doing that, don't get me wrong, and love the Navy also for allowing me to do it. So I was always going to join a service probably. That's how my background was. My father was a police officer for about 30 years. So that ran through the family. So I did have an idea about joining up, but at university I was doing engineering and some other stuff. So really it probably wasn't something that was at the forefront of my mind, and that may well have come out in my writing somewhere. So his question really here is, what were you expecting military life to be like before you joined? Did it meet those expectations? Now, the Air Training Corps is, and people say bad things about it. It doesn't matter if you want to say bad things about the Air Training Corps. I couldn't care less. For me, I think I was in there for about 6 or 7 years. I learned a lot. And every day during the summer on our squadron, on 4 Squadron, we see Air Cadets that come up there. and we involve them. We put them in the flying training devices if we can. We always try and fly a cadet that's done really well during the weeks. This is where we get the future of the Air Force from, is from the Air Training Corps. This is what the Air Training Corps is there for. So I think there are some Air Training Corps units around the country that may not be as engaged, maybe in flying, or maybe need some motivation. And I have spoken at some of those. I've been down there and tried to inspire some people. And I can see sometimes it's difficult to get some units inspired, especially when they may have, they may be in areas where maybe a lack of affluence, or there isn't motivation, or there isn't funding in that particular area. So that can be difficult. And I tend to go to those places and speak. And if you're with an Air Cadet unit and I can come to you, I will do that. Or I'll send someone else from around the country and try and come and speak to you. And I do this also with University Air Squadrons, University Royal Navy units, Officer Training Corps, CCS units, wherever I can, because we need to be inspired. And to be inspirational, of course, you have to be inspired yourself. So I try and do that as where I can. So I did have an idea, because I've been to Gibraltar, I've been to Benson, Odium. I've been to some bases within the Air Training Corps, and I've been around stations, so I kind of knew a little bit about the military, and I'd read everything. I mean, there was nothing left to read. And I do recommend you read everything, and you send me emails, and you do what you can, you read my posts, get a real idea of what the military is like if you're going to commit yourself to it. So what we expect the military life to be like before you joined, I expect it to be quite regimented. I wasn't disappointed, it was. But I didn't expect it to be as mature as it was. I expected it to be very disciplined and like you see in the kind of the American films, United States Marine Corps films, and it wasn't like that. In the early stages, of course, it's going to be. Throughout your initial officer training, they don't know whether they've got people in who are highly intelligent or people that maybe need some development. So they have to level the standard to cater for everyone, which makes a lot of sense for all of us. Sometimes you don't feel challenged, and sometimes you do. And it's the idea of the training instructors at Cranwell or Dartmouth or Sandhurst or Lympstone, wherever they are, to identify those people that need more challenges and drive them that way. So that is there. Also, look at the people that maybe aren't doing so well, pick them up, give them challenges to help them grow. So for me, seeing the military do that was a bit new. I didn't realize that. Did it meet those expectations? Absolutely. I felt very challenged throughout my whole training. So it was a great place to be. And no matter what you join, I think you're going to have a great time. So that's, the military life. I'd read a lot about it. I'd watched every documentary that there ever was on television. You can find so much on YouTube now. Just go and saturate yourself with knowledge about the military. You won't be disappointed. Really get some idea. We have something in the military called dislocation of expectation. And they use it when you do conduct after capture. If you're shot down behind enemy lines, you'll be captured. And it will be like the worst thing's ever happened to you. Don't get me wrong, it will. We train for that by dislocating what you expect to happen. And that's what happens really in military training. If you can prepare yourself for that by gaining knowledge, gaining some insight, like from these things you're watching right now, or from any kind of YouTube video that you might find, or anything I write, or anything any of my buddies write, read that. It helps to prepare you for that shock of capture the moment you walk into Lympstone, or the moment you're on a parade square in Sandhurst. You can keep your wits about you. That's a great thing. Moving on then, this guy says, obviously, he's still looking into his future course of action, trying to work out exactly the best path for him. And that's fair enough. There's a lot of opportunity out there today, not just in the military, but airlines or wherever else you might be doing. So he's looking at doing an aerospace, aeronautical kind of degree. That's exactly what I did. That's quite common. You don't have to. You can do history. I wish I'd studied history. I was looking to study history at Reading, and in the end I went and studied engineering at Bristol, a polytechnic, by the way, or a university. It was University of the West of England, so it was a new polytechnic, whatever they call them now. So I did aerospace manufacturing systems engineering there, as it was called back in the day, 20 years ago. And that was great. That was very interesting. So he's going to try and do that, and then he's going to progress on to what he sees as initial officer training, elementary flying training, basic fast jet training, and hopefully advanced flying training as well on the Hawk T2. It's because he wants to go down the fast jet line. Here's the interesting thing about this, guys. Fast pace I'm giving you now, just keep up or just pause or whatever, it's fine. When you come into the military, of course, you don't get a choice in what you want to fly if you come in as an aviator. You have to accept the fact that you could fly one of three strands. That's going to be fast jet, multi-engine, or rotary helicopters, okay? There's also another strand you can join up as now, which is going to leapfrog these three strands in the future, and that is RPAS, so remotely piloted air systems, okay? These are the drones, the UAVs. You come in with a little blue wings on you, you do some flying, and then you go and hit these systems, and this is big right now. So don't neglect this. Go and have a look at this. Systems are becoming very automated. And for those of you who are going to come in today and you end up getting streamed fast jets, you're going to end up on the Typhoon or the F-35. The F-35 is going to be very sim heavy. So you will do some flying, but a lot of that work that you do is going to be on the ground in simulators, much like the RPAS guys are doing, the remotely piloted air systems, the drones that you see, the Predators, this kind of stuff, okay, the Reapers. So, you know, how are these things different? Well, they're not that different anymore. This is the kind of warfare we're looking at. So prepare yourself for this. Read up on this. You cannot join the military saying, I'm going to be a fast jet pilot or nothing. Now, you can join the airlines and say, I want to fly Boeings, I want to fly Airbus, and you can work yourself in there as you go through your career. In the military, it doesn't work. But it's not as if you're trapped in. If you come and join and you end up not getting the platform you want, stick at it. It's going to be awesome. It really is. My brother was a Hercules pilot, had a great career. Awesome career, flew all over the world. I've got guys flying Chinooks, Pumas, Merlins. Awesome time. Fantastic time. And there are some fantastic airplanes in right now. So don't worry about coming in, not getting the type you want to fly, because a lot of you that want to fly fast jets have never even been in a fast jet. And let me tell you, the state of my neck right now, having flown jets for 20 years, means that by the time I'm 60, I'm going to have very limited mobility. I know that. I see physiotherapists that are telling me exactly that. So let's think about the future. This guy's doing it. He's doing it really well. So let's carry on here. Let's not get ourselves into one particular airframe, because there's every chance that won't happen for you. However, he's thinking ahead. He is saying it's going to be the next 10 years of his life, which is half his life he's lived so far probably, of doing that degree and then doing the flying training. I think maybe it's a pessimistic way of looking at it. But either way, he's absolutely correct. It is going to be some time. From experience, he asks, can you describe the journey from student to pilot? It's a long time, and this podcast is already up around 17 minutes. To be honest with you, that is written down for you. Okay, you can go onto the RAF website. It will tell you exactly what happens from the moment you step into initial officer training at Cranwell until you come out on the front line. I'm not going to go into that here. Go and read about that. I don't want to be rude when I say this, guys, but you have to understand that there's content out there that's better than I can give you. In effect, you go through initial officer training, elementary flying training, basic fast jet training, and then you go on to fast jets if you're going on a fast jet. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at the Prefect, which I've just seen at Cranwell, and I think I'm up there this week, looking at the Grob Prefect. It's a fantastic platform. Then you'll go on to the Texan T6 at Valley for a very short course, and on to the Hawk T2, which I instruct on, of course, at Valley. So that's fast jet. If you're Maltese, you're going to fly the Phenom, of which I've brought in 5 of those aircraft. The first one's at Cranwell now. That's a business jet, and then you go on to A400, you go on to Hercules and the rest of them. Okay, P8, Poseidon, whatever it's going to be called. That's going to be a great career stand. Rotary, Chinooks, Pumas, all that kind of stuff's out there. And you'll be flying at Shawbury on the 135, the 145. Both those helicopters are doing stuff there at the moment at Shawbury as well. So great brand new platforms. We've got it's like someone's opened a box of toys and said, this is the Royal Air Force fast jet, multi-engine, rotary flying system now. And you've got brand new toys brought in by Ascent Flight Training. It is a great system. I haven't drank the Kool-Aid, okay? I still have issues with the whole thing. However, it's what we've got. Roll with it. And actually, for guys who know no difference, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I've worked with it for the last 7 years. So have a look yourself at what that journey looks like. There is a lot of stress in it, of course, but you're in it with all your buddies. The stress is manageable. Guys like the guy that wrote this email are going to be legendary at it. I know that for a start. Right. Was there a point during training where you thought this wasn't a good decision? And you expect me now to say every single day. Let's be mature about it. It's a difficult life because you can be chopped, which means you can be removed from flying training at any point in that flying training, okay? So, but you have to have failed a certain amount of trips, and most guys know it's coming, and when we do remove guys from flying training, and I've removed many guys from flying training, there is a sense of relief. And then we restream them onto a platform that can be more accommodating for them, all right? So when I say remove guys and girls, of course, I mean, no one is immune to this. And if a guy or girl is struggling on the platform, then actually what we do is probably save them from an untimely death by taking them away from that platform and giving them something that is more in tune with their own skill set. Does that make sense? Because rushing around in jets is not necessarily conducive to a happy mental state the whole time. Nor is flying helicopters low level over Libya. I mean, don't get me wrong, or flying multi-engines at low level, whatever it might be. These things, we need to work out who fits where. And sometimes we get it wrong and we have to restream. This is one of those things. So, did I think it was a good decision? A lot of the time, I wouldn't say I was really enjoying myself. I was challenged, and I was with a course, and the course everyone was challenged, and we were having a good time because it is a good time. But left and right, people were being chopped as we went through. Buddies were getting restreamed on the different platforms. That does make you think, and I think you're unsettled for maybe 3 or 4 years. It's you're in a service is going to look after you. You can be restreamed onto another platform, i.e. aircraft, or you can be restreamed into another career strand within the service. And there are some great jobs within the service. And one of my biggest regrets, really, and it's not a regret because I couldn't have done it, but I wish I could have my time again, and I wish I could go into, say, the RAF regiment, or I wish I could go into maybe the Intel branch, or something like that. You can never do it because you've done your career already, but I would just love to be a regiment gunner. I'd love to join the Royal Marines. I think I probably missed out on that. I applied to the Fusiliers, Royal Regiment of Fusiliers when I was younger. I didn't go through with it. Instead, I went joined the Navy. So there's a lot of things. You've only got one career, right? So I just flew fast jets instead. So there's an underlying stress, and I think you need to embrace that. There's a good book out there called The Obstacle is the Way by a guy called Ryan Holiday. If you want to go and read that, it talks about these problems that are put in front of us and how we can use them to better ourselves and to just basically absorb that and move on. And in my book, I'm writing on decision making. I talk about Socrates and Plato. I talk about something called inversion, where we anticipate bad things happening to us, and that helps us with decision making, especially about unpalatable things. We're drifting off the flying, guys, so let's get back in here, okay? So was there a point during training where you thought this wasn't a good decision? Every single day. But you still wake up, you still go and do it because that's what makes you different from the civilians world that you just left. It's one of those things. You just accept the fact that what you're doing is difficult. Why would you not do that? Unless you want a mediocre life, of course. And we don't want that. Computer's just died. Here we go. With regards to the military itself, he says, he wants to talk a bit about lifestyle. We're not going to do more than 30 minutes here. We're going to get through this now. I'll release this in like 480p, so it's not a huge download for everyone. So lifestyle he wants to talk about. He asks, is the structured, disciplined order of the military restrictive in any way? Before you laugh, listen to this. He says, does it offer opportunity for growth or personal development that is actually meaningful? And I've written recently about private school, state school, fixed versus growth mindset and that kind of stuff. It's in an essay I released recently. I think it's the second to last one. I can't remember what it's called. I have to go and find it. I'll put it in the notes at the bottom there somewhere. I'll get my webpage up now. So basically he's asking, does it offer the opportunity for growth? Does it restrict your personal development in any way? And I think that's a really interesting, and I think that's a really mature question to ask, because a lot of people don't think about this. Obviously the military is restrictive. I haven't got pink hair that you're looking at right now. There are things I can't do. I can't take drugs. Obviously alcohol is a drug of choice in the military, and I could do a whole post about alcohol if you want. I haven't drunk alcohol in about 10 months now. There's a reason for that we can talk about a bit later, but we can go into that. So yes, there are restrictions that the military places upon you that society doesn't. I can't have a beard, for example. I mean, why? I can't have earrings. It's not going to stop me being a worse pilot by having earrings, but you have to understand that you have to have some kind of rules in a rule-based culture. There are things with our aircraft that we're not able to do. I can't fly an aircraft under a bridge. I can physically do it. I have the capability to put an aircraft under a bridge. Of course I do. I'm not allowed to do that. There are reasons I can't do that. In the same way, there are reasons that I shouldn't have a beard, or I shouldn't have earrings, or I shouldn't have pink hair. So yeah, in those ways, the military is restrictive. It has to be disciplined, because what we're asking people to do is to be disciplined. We're asking people to get out of the trenches and run towards the machine guns. We're asking people to take jets and do things with them, or do things with rotaries or multi-engine aircraft that airliners wouldn't do. You understand that. We put people in harm's way. So that has to be enforced through discipline. The discipline is not like it's no worse than you'd expect at some private school. My wife went to a private school, okay? She doesn't see the military discipline as any different to what she went through. And actually it's really enjoyable because you're all in the same thing and it gives you something to whinge about, all right? And yes, you can still go downtown when you're in Dartmouth, or you can still go out whilst you're at Cranwell or Lympstone. Of course you can. You can still go out. I mean, they're not putting you in the military. You go and visit your family. You go and have a couple of beers with the guys. It's all good. And the girls, of course. So it's not that restrictive. Personal development, sport in the military is huge. I wish I'd done more of it. That's a whole nother post really about why I didn't. I do Nordic skiing now where I can. It's opened my eyes to that. My father, he did trampolining just because it was there and he could. One day in the gym, just going to learn trampolining. I mean, I know guys that do bobsleigh, cresta run stuff, polo, stuff that you never get the opportunity to do, ever. I mean, I came from, my background wasn't that wealthy, that's fine, whatever, I couldn't care less. But seeing this is like the public school I never had. So the opportunities that I never had, that for me is a good enough reason to join the military, right? It's awesome. I love the military. I'm leaving next year for different reasons, but I still love it. And I'll miss it terribly. Right, so try and get some of you guys in the military to replace me. That's what I'm trying to do. Would you say the majority of your contacts come from the forces? Do you end up meeting many other people? I've got about 4 minutes, hopefully, guys, and I'll get out of your face here. You tend to find the majority of contacts do come from the forces. Yes, that's true. And when it comes to fixed or growth mindset, the essay I wrote recently was talking about how a growth mindset was part of the military culture, and that's fine. However, this is a little bit different now because there is quite a closed mindset insofar as you tend to meet the same people, yeah? And the wives and the husbands are the same. We marry alpha partners because we don't want them to embarrass us in the bar context or whatever it might be. So we marry these people and we wonder why divorces are so high because alpha. So yeah, absolutely. Most people you know, because you live with them on base the whole time, are the same people. And actually I really love now, I live away from the base, I meet lots of other people, and that's really endearing. So you can always do that, you don't have to live on the base, but we tend to because the housing was a bit cheaper. It's now becoming more expensive, of course, and more people will go and buy their own houses, hopefully not move around as much. So we don't tend to meet that many other people, no. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. So most of my contacts come from the military, absolutely. And different militaries as well. I've got a lot of contacts in the French and the American military. So he says here, lastly, not trying to make this an interview, not trying to make this feel like an interview. It doesn't feel like an interview. It's as long as an interview. He says, would you say that cuts to the services are really having a noticeable impact on training as well as other aspects of the military? I would say no, I haven't really seen that, to be honest with you. That's not to say that I wouldn't be doing more or high quality of training if I had more money to do it. What I'm saying is the quality of training we've got is obviously acceptable to the powers that be, those guys in the big chairs at the top. Do I agree with that? Yeah, of course I do. I think so. I wouldn't still be in the military if I disagreed massively. And I'm leaving the military not in disagreement with the way we train people. I think it's brilliant. I would like to see us train men and women slightly differently. That's a very personal thing. I do a lot of reading on gender. And the essay recently written by a guy called Damore in Google, I think he had some points in that. Throw me spears by all means. I'm just saying that I believe men and women learn in a slightly different way. And I think we could probably cater with that. But does that come down to a budget? No. Does it have an impact on our training? Not really. The cuts to the services, though, will impact, I think, the army greatly. I think the army of 80-odd thousand could be problematic for sustained operations in an expeditionary sense. But getting deep now, guys, getting deep. So, but do we have some of the greatest training platforms, training aircraft in the world? I think absolutely. Grob Prefect, Airbus 135, 145. We've got Texan T6 coming in, and next year we've got the Phenom now. I mean, geez, what more do you want out of these things? You know, I'm looking after 3 of these aircraft at the moment, and I look inside these cockpits, and it's something that is it's incredible. The stuff we've got is something like I never had when I used to fly the Singsby Firefly 260 back in the day. I mean, these cockpits are buttons and just crazy stuff. So yeah, we've got some great kit. So the cuts, yeah, for me, I could go into this stuff, but you know, being on a pay or 1% pay increase for the last 8 years, I'm an idiot to stay in. Why would I do that? Okay, so these kind of things are going to impact because guys like me are going to leave, and that's fine. Saudi's paying $15,000 a month right now, tax-free, to go and fly Hawks out there. Do I see guys in Valley leaving? Yes, I do. That's just what it is. And as long as the Air Force continues to say, well, you know, we can't pay that kind of money, then guys will go to where that money is. That's just how it is. I mean, unless we start discussing this now, then there's not going to be any conversation at all, is there? So it's one of those things. So yes, in that respect, by having a pay freeze for so long, does have an impact on the military. But the platforms you've got to train on are just fantastic. The frontline aircraft you've got are incredible. Okay, the way the Typhoon's been developed now is amazing. Tornado coming out of service, F-35 is an incredible platform. Fundamentally changes the way we do warfare. So that's going to be incredible. The multi-engine platforms are just, the technology is incredible. And the rotary stuff that's coming now, that's out there, is just amazing. Okay, so just to finish off then, my camera actually stopped recording because we've been doing this for so long. So basically, hook me up, whatever. Send me any questions that are kind of different to what I've been talking to you about, and anything you need, have a look through the blog. I'm sure you can find it there. Hopefully this video helped you. That's pretty much it. Tim Davies, Fast Ship Performance. I think that's stopped. Let's stop.